The next few weeks are difficult ones for the Cincinnati Fire Service. We've lost too many good firefighters. Doc Ellison, Brian Shawa, and Robin Broxterman. Today, we remember Oscar Armstrong III. 20 years ago, Oscar died in the line of duty. On Sunday, we remember Daryl. Both good men taken from us much too soon. Both died doing what they love, serving the city and her citizens, doing a job that they love. There's something about riding around on a fire truck, the greatest job in the world. The Training Bureau, under the leadership of Captain Flagler, District Chief Haynes, Assistant Chief Smith, wanted to remember Oscar and Daryl by discussing the events of each fire, the lesson learned from so many years ago, and the things we can do better today. This is a live presentation on Zoom and delayed by 15 seconds on YouTube. Please keep your microphones muted. Interaction is okay, and you're encouraged to ask questions through the chat feature on Zoom or the comments section on YouTube. Lieutenant Mundy and Captain Flagler are monitoring each. There will also be time available at the end to ask questions as well. Finally, after our presentation, take the time to drill on the objectives listed on the Training Bureau bulletin sent out in an email you received this morning. Hose deployment with obstacles involving a driver's role from the pumper to the front door. Quick water to get that attack line deployed in less than 1 minute to a first floor exterior point of service. Following a charged hose line out of a building. And recognition and prevention of flashover. Oscar Armstrong, at the time of the incident, he's 25 years old. 2 years on the Cincinnati Fire Department. Engaged, his fiancee Sakina. 2 sons and a daughter still in the womb. Much too soon. He now has 3 adult children, a daughter he's never met. His mother, Annette, should be worried about being a grandma right now. As with most line of duty deaths, we talk about a domino chain of events. One thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. Laidlaw Avenue that morning was no different. Those chain of events spiraled out of control. Mistakes were made. A lot of things we could have done better. Let's learn from that. Number 1, inexperienced crew on the first arriving company. Engine 9 that day had an experienced officer over 20 years of service, but the acting driver had less than 2 years on, the very first time he was ever driving an apparatus. Oscar, less than 2 years on. The other roughneck, less than 1 year on. That inexperience came into play. 4 size up by first arriving officers. By our procedures, our first arriving engine or truck is supposed to do a 360 of the building, whether it be viewing at least 4 sides or able to walk around the entire building. And that was not done appropriately at this fire. For attack line selection, it's about 100 feet from where they went into front suction to where the front door was. The line they chose was a long line off of the rear. 7 sections of 1 3/4. We've talked a lot about how sometimes too much hose is just as bad, if not worse, than not enough hose. In this case, severe kinks of that hose line in the side yard affected the ability of getting water to the nozzle in appropriate fashion. Indecision about the point of service for the attack line. Initially, they took a line off. Oscar grabbed the first 100 feet, headed towards the front door. The second firefighter took the rest of the bed, 250 feet, and dumped it at the back of the apparatus. They get to the front door. The door's locked. The officer does not have a forcible entry tool with him. Notices a fire from the Charlie side of the building. So he says, hey, let's redirect our line to the Charlie side. So the line leaves the front porch, goes to the side yard, heads towards the backyard, and they're met in the backyard by District 4, who says, hey, let's attack this from the unburned side. So now that attack line is stretched from the backyard back to the front porch. When you've got a line going in all different directions, you've got kinks in that 350 feet of hose. We've talked a lot about premature horizontal ventilation and the importance of coordinating that ventilation with the engine company. Make sure we have water ready to be applied to the seat of the fire before we horizontally enter. 20 years ago, we didn't know that. Truck 2 had fire blowing out the kitchen door, kitchen window, ended up ventilating every window on the Charlie side, on the Delta side, working towards the front door. This caused the fire to increase dramatically. Fire wants what it can't have. It wanted oxygen, we gave it that. And the fire grew significantly. For company discipline, difficult. Officer had a choice to make. He has hose deployment issues where water is not getting to his nozzle. Neither one of his roughnecks could help because neither one of them could be acting drivers. So the officer had to leave the porch that morning to go check with his driver to try to ascertain exactly why they were not getting water to the nozzle. That left Oscar, firefighter 2 from engine 9, and another firefighter on the porch. He did not say, do not enter the smoke-filled environment without a charged hose line. They did. Failure to recognize pre-flashover conditions. We've preached a lot during drill schools about seeing that angry smoke, recognizing the fast-moving smoke, seeing that paralysis of the floor and realizing what's coming next. The flashover conditions, and never, never, ever enter a smoke-filled environment without a charged hose line. It's the only weapon you have. The structure itself at 1131 Laidlow Avenue was pretty straightforward. Two-story dwelling, built in 1916. You got lath paneling on the first floor. Only 1,200 square feet on the first floor, living room, dining room, kitchen area. On the second floor, 3 bedrooms. We had entrance doors on the Alpha side, the Charlie side, and the Bravo side. The interior layout, front door where the line went in. It started as a food on a stove. The occupant stated they parked back here on the Charlie side. Every morning on his way out, he would light a cigarette off the stove. This morning, he turned the stove on to light the cigarette, walked out the back door, forgot to turn it on. Just yesterday, Aiken side, District 4, had a food on the stove fire where the civilian injured. Far too many food on the stove, still the #1 cause of structure fires in the United States. Daryl's fire, food on the stove. The 2 occupants on the second floor were alerted by the smoke detectors going off. They exited the structure, went to a neighbor's house to call 911. This is a view that morning. Engine 9 front suction hydrant, about 100 feet from the pumper to the front door. 1,200 square foot house. Cross lay would have been appropriate. When they take that long line, 7 sections of 1 3/4 line, flaked over into the side yard. That caused massive kinks. If you follow their attack line out all the way to the back, all the way back up to the pumper, caused massive kinks. When truck 2 arrived, they had fire blowing out of the door and window. When he busted up the windows on the Charlie side and the Delta side, again, wind is blowing in this direction. So if I've got the front door open and wind blowing this direction, the fire is getting bigger. The 3 roughnecks left on the front porch. After they forced the door, comments were made. They saw smoke pouring out of the front door, about 1 feet from the ground. All 3 entered the front door. The firefighter 2 from engine 9 went back to check on the status of the hose line because it was still dry. He saw water coming to the hose line, re-entered. At that point, everything got very hot. Smoke was now down to the ground. The carpet itself was off-gassing. The fire flashed over. Firefighter 2 from engine 9 was able to grab the other roughneck directly in front of him, threw him out the front door. There were 5 members left on the front porch from engine 2, truck 2, and truck 32. They saw Oscar stand up on fire and run towards the front door, then turn to the right and back into the dining room area. This is the char damage. This was Oscar's position. 5 firefighters entered with 2 hose line, extinguished the fire, and 4 men were able to drag Oscar from his location to the window. They said it was the hardest thing they've ever done. Oscar was removed from this window. Mike Horseshoe, a roughneck on truck 32 that day, did mouth-to-mouth on Oscar Armstrong. This is Oscar's PPE. His hood, his helmet, his face piece. The weakest part of our ensemble in any flashover condition is our face piece. Your very first move should be elbow up to protect your face piece. As soon as that face piece fails, we're done. Oscar's boots, turnout pants, SCBA, and turnout coat. That day, the fire department came together. It was a beautiful service to honor a good man taken from us much too soon. It seemed like the entire fire department was there that day. Columbus came down and staffed our firehouses for us. The city came out to honor Oscar. What can we do? Number one, the Oscar Armstrong line of duty death report, 47 lessons learned, 47 recommendations. Read it. It's available to us on the S drive. Number two, we talked about the inexperienced crew on engine 9 that day. Are we doing enough today with our new kids to make them better? We're not making the fires today that we did. We have to train every day. We have to be good at the basics. Do you have double yellow helmets in your back seat? Do you have 2 roughnecks with less than 3 years on? Hose deployment that day, we could have done better. We've got to be able to effectively deploy that hose line from the pumper to the point of service. If I've got an exterior entrance, can I do that in less than 1 minute and have water ready for the fire? Are we coordinating all of our horizontal ventilation with an engine company ready to put water on the fire? Do we understand modern fireground behavior? Watch the videos after this presentation and recognize flashover conditions. Understand what dark, angry smoke looks like. And remember, if you are caught in a flashover condition, your first move, elbow up, protect that face piece. Make sure anytime you have a smoke-filled environment, have a charged hose line. We should never enter a smoke-filled environment with a dry attack line. And remember, if you're faced with high heat conditions, flow the line. Always, always, always flow the line. Make sure you stay together, work together, as a company. You all go in together, you all come out together. We have to have discipline as that first engine and second engine. It should not be a competition. Engine one should not be racing engine two. Engine two should be supporting engine one. Let's get that primary tack line to the seat of the fire, because everything gets better when you put the fire out. It's not a race. We have to work as a team. Have we practiced following a charged hose line out of a building? The smooth bump to the pump, and doing it in a rapid fashion. Have we practiced our maydays recently? Do we understand PAM? Do we know how to do good rat drags and carries? And please, don't just say never forget. Mean it. The drills you have today: hose deployment, cross lay to the front door, quick water, get that line in service in less than 1 minute, be able to follow a hose line out of a building, and recognize pre-flashover conditions. To me, this is the scariest part of doing this presentation today. We talk about inexperienced crew. In the 5 years preceding Oscar's death, 21 firefighters, less than 2 years of experience. This is today, in the 5 years prior to today. We've got right now 127 with less than 2 years of service. We've got 94 firefighters less than 13 months on. If you think about that, we've got 31 per unit with yellow helmets, probationary firefighters. That scares me to death. We've got 15 lieutenant positions currently vacant. We've got 14 driver positions currently vacant. That's a lot of acting officers. That's a lot of acting drivers. Inexperience is a concern. We have to train every day on the basics of firefighting. We have to be able to recognize flashover conditions, recognize that angry smoke, understand that when we see the furniture off-gassing, when we see the carpet off-gassing, we have one weapon. That's a charged hose line. You've got to flow water into the high heat conditions to prevent the flashover. Remember, this started as a simple food on the stove. Only the kitchen was involved upon arrival. This single family residence killed Oscar. Please, don't let your spouse, your mother, your father etch your name from a memorial. Never forget. Today, honor Oscar. Drill today. Drill every day. Do everything you can to never forget. This is the most dangerous profession. Please stay safe.